Good evening and a warm welcome to you. This is The Point of News, KTN Weekend Prime on this Sunday, the 29th of March. My name is John Alanamu. Usually Yvonne Okwara would be standing next to me, but she's away on assignment. So tonight I shall be handling Checkpoint, and we're going to be getting into a very interesting discussion today, continuing with our coverage of corruption in this country. The discussion, of course, is how do we strengthen the fight against graft now that President Uhuru Kenyatta asking principal secretaries, cabinet secretaries and heads of state corporations to step aside, has set what would be the tone in the fight against corruption. We'll be getting into that with a member of parliament as well as a representative of the Institute for Social Accountability. They'll be here soon and I'll introduce them at that point. But of course, Graft Countdown, day number 57 of the countdown to the lapsing of those 60 days that the president gave as an ultimatum for investigations into graft leveled against those individuals, those 175 individuals in the EACC report will lapse. We are covering every one of those single days with comprehensive coverage, answering your questions about corruption. But of course, we also are covering other issues around the country, other major stories that happened in Kenya today and around the world. Here now are the highlights on KTN Weekend Prime.
The solution is not only to be sacked, but even to be killed.
Wacha tu support Uhuru Kenyatta, akilini serikali yake na wezi atoe. Let's support you.
Reactions fast and furious even as Ngilu and Kimemia now also step aside.
Kama jina nafanana na William, haiwezi kufanana kwa vitendo.
If my party continues to shift more and more to become anti-devolution, obviously then I will not be with them.
And the changing face of politics in the Rift Valley.
Unambeba mgeni anajua kwamba unamshusha airport, badala yake unamshusha njiani na ni saa za usiku.
Saizi na manga unapita, lakini ukishafika pale Tanzania tena paki zao hauingii.
The wars rage on between Kenyan and Tanzanian tourist agents.
I'm going to invest and I'm going to change my life.
And new beginnings for Kisumu youth seeking to escape from their humble backgrounds. Thank you very much for joining us on KTN Weekend Prime. Our sign language interpreter is Meresha Awiti, and we begin with our coverage of that Graft Countdown. Cabinet Secretaries Charity Ngilu and Kazungu Kambi have today announced that they have stepped aside from office to allow for investigations into their alleged corruption. Secretary to the Cabinet Francis Kimemia has also stepped down. This is a far cry from others also said to be in a list of shame, some of whom have publicly announced that they have no intention whatsoever of doing any such thing. Sharon Momanyi brings us up to speed with the details.
When I'm found corrupt, the solution is not only to be sacked, but even to be killed.
That was the radical statement by Labour Cabinet Secretary Kazungu Kambi, who became the 5th Cabinet Secretary in the infamous list of shame to step aside to allow for investigations into graft claims, but not without emphasizing that this move is not an admission of guilt.
The mention of my name does not mean that I'm corrupt.
Kambi false scandals at the NSSF, saying they are the cause of his name being a part of the graft report.
Ufisadi wa Wizara ya Leba unajulikana kuanzia siku sijakuja hapa, na nyinyi mnajua NSSF imekuwa ni cash cow ya watu wengine. Mmejua na mmejua vile nimeinyorosha, nimelainisha, nimesukuma wanaume wengine nje.
Na wewe kama umepatikana na wale watu wanaochunguza, beba msalaba wako. Ile parastatal liko chini yake inaitwa National Social Security Fund, NSSF. Akazuia waajiri wenye kupeleka huko pesa kwenda kuketi kwa mkutano huko. akazuia wafanyikazi ambao wanatoa hizo pesa kwenda kukutana huko kwa boda, akawatoa. Hiyo peke yake ni corruption and an abuse of office.
Late Sunday afternoon, Lands Cabinet Secretary Charity Ngilu followed suit, stepping aside to allow investigations to take place. A statement by the Presidential Strategic Communications Unit made this announcement, indicating that ICT Cabinet Secretary Fred Matiang'i will in the meantime be acting in her place. In a similar fashion, the Secretary to the Cabinet, Francis Kimemia, also issued a statement announcing that he had stepped aside. But elected officials are dancing differently to this tune, with the Council of Governors maintaining that they are not constitutionally bound to step aside as per the President's directive.
Na wawache kutijatija watu kila mahali. Na wafuate haki. Sisi hatuna shida. Tunachunga pesa ambayo tumepewa.
We support the fight against graft. What we are saying is that it must be done according to the law.
Leaders of the County Assembly's Forum now want both the EACC report and the President's State of the Nation speech taken to county assemblies for debate. The County Assembly's leaders say that this will help them take decisive action on governors adversely mentioned in corruption.
If the governors are standing down and saying we are not going to step aside, so how are we supposed to fight corruption in county governments? The governors must tell us. So if the President's way is not the right way, the governors must tell us which is the right way.
As the clock ticks on the 60 days given to the EACC to conduct investigations, officials implicated in the report react differently to the mandate to step aside to allow for these investigations to take place. The governors especially stating that the President does not have the mandate to ask this of them. How this matter takes form remains to be seen, even as Parliament begins debate on the matter this Tuesday. Sharma Manyi, KTN, Nairobi.
That debate, of course, on who has the mandate to ask governors and other elected officials to step down while corruption allegations against them are being investigated will form part of our discussion tonight on Checkpoint. But today on Graft Countdown, as we did yesterday, we will update you on some of the things that you need to know within these 60 days. And first, of course, is what's going to happen with respect to those investigations. Now, speaking to Keriako Tobiko on phone earlier, he told me of a number of things that are happening right now, at least in the preliminary stages. Right now, the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission that had handed over its report to the President is in discussions with the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions to form a joint investigative task force. Now, the politics of whether the EACC should have handed over that report to the President or straight to Parliament, as is the law, we will also get into, but that has already happened. So right now what's happening is the DPP and the EACC will form a joint task force to investigate the allegations of corruption leveled against some 175 people. Now, investigators will be attached from the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission to the DPP's office and the other way around. What else is going to happen next? The investigators will conclude their investigations within these 60 days and forward them back to the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions. And then the crucial point, by day 60, the DPP will take a decision on whether to charge those who have been investigated by the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission in that joint task force. Take a decision on whether to charge them in court or to let them go free because of a lack of evidence with respect to those claims of corruption leveled against them. That is the most crucial point in this. So that's what's probably going to be happening within these 60 days. It could happen that some of these court cases will be instituted if the investigations conclude earlier than those 60 days. But a number of you have been asking, what is stepping aside in the scheme of things? We've seen a number of people, including today Charity Ngilu, Francis Kimemia, stepping aside to pave the way for investigations. Now, stepping aside has really no legal basis, the phrase at least, in law. It is largely a political move that the president has used, drawing upon his own executive authority, especially with respect to the people that he has direct mandate over. That's CSs, PSs, heads of state corporations, telling them as a boss to step aside. But they do still draw their salaries, or at least they can, and they still can enjoy the benefits that accrue to those offices. But if, as we mentioned, after those 60 days, the DPP decides to prefer charges against those people, then the laws kick in. And once a person is charged, they are automatically interdicted. Now, interdiction means that the person will be prohibited from performing their tasks as CSs, PSs, state of or heads of state corporations. Performing those tasks, they will also be on half salary. They will not be performing any of those tasks in that office until the court case is proved against them. But now, what happens next with respect to elected officials is what we're going to be getting into with Checkpoint. And there you can send us your contributions with respect to the power or the right of recall. That is an important power that perhaps Kenyans will be needing to draw upon in the next 60 days and days after, when this fight against corruption continues to kick up. But right now, that's the update we have for you on the Graft Countdown. Remember to keep it on KTN for more such updates and comprehensive coverage on these 60 days and issues surrounding corruption. This has been the Graft Countdown. Now, it has been speculated that the recent developments over graft could have a basis in politics, and it's said that Deputy President William Ruto's URP could well be the greatest casualty in this. Well, there is something else that could be sending shivers down the spine of the URP leadership, and that is the newfound political friendship between Baringo Senator Gideon Moi and Bomet Governor Isaac Ruto. KTN's Aaron Ochieng now looks at the new political game plan in the Rift Valley.
New political realignments could be in the offing in the Rift Valley ahead of the 2017 election, with KANU URP rolling out strategies to take control of the vote-rich region. KANU has declared it will sponsor Baringo Senator Gideon Moi as its presidential flag bearer, while URP and TNA are to merge to join the new kid on the block, the Jubilee Alliance Party, to be used as a political vehicle for the 2017 polls. The contest is widely seen as being between Deputy President William Ruto and Gideon Moi, who could be fighting to get the Rift Valley Kingpin title from Ruto that was for a long time held by his father Daniel Arap Moi.
What is so special about Gideon Moi? Gideon Moi, the only glaring feature in his CV is that he was the son of the former president. So what?
Both parties enjoy massive following in the Rift Valley, but whereas Gideon Moi will be running for the presidency, Ruto will be President Uhuru Kenyatta's running mate, waiting to go for the seat in 2022. It is likely that Bomet Governor Isaac Ruto could be with Gideon.
If my party continues to shift more and more to become anti-devolution, obviously then I will not be with them.
In 2013, there were more serious candidates than Gideon Moi and Isaac Ruto. Isaac Ruto won by a paltry of less than 5,000 votes against Dr. Kones. So where we are today, William Ruto is above Gideon Moi and above Isaac Ruto.
Na mimi nasikia wengine wanasema ati Mheshimiwa Ruto ameuza watu. Sasa ametoa URP, ameenda Jubilee. Sisi wote tuko Jubilee.
But uncertainty over the outcome of the ICC case facing the Deputy President and the merger of URP and TNA to form JAP are triggering discontent among some members of the Kalenjin community and Rift Valley voters at large. Critics of JAP dismissed the coalition as a ploy to render URP politically irrelevant, and some URP rebels have criticized the deputy president for jumping onto the JAP bandwagon without consulting its members.
Currently, URP calls for total obedience to the party leader. That is what we refused under ODM. And that is what we refuse under URP. And that is what we are going to refuse under whatever methodology.
Unajua hata kama jina nafanana na William, haiwezi kufanana kwa vitendo. Haiwezi kuwa Bomet peke yake, huwezi kusema unaweza fikia wa Kenya. Kwa hivyo mimi msianze kutishika ati iko mwingine.
But analysts argue that whereas URP supporters may be publicly dismissing the Ruto-Moi alliance, they are indeed worried of the consequences of such a move.
If Gideon Moi runs for the presidency in 2017, he stands no chance of winning. That's the political reality. But I don't think that Gideon Moi deciding to run in 2017 is meant to win. Gideon Moi running in 2017 is for him to announce himself on the national scene and to create a base in Kalenjin land that I'm the new leader of Kalenjin land, and going into the future I shall be negotiating with other communities and political parties.
But even more worrying for them would be whether the newfound alliance of Ruto and Moi would have serious consequences to the Uhuru 2017 re-election, with various factors taken into consideration, including the deputy president's ongoing trial at the ICC.
Gideon Moi running in 2017 won't be just a problem for William Ruto, but it will be also a problem for Jubilee and therefore Uhuru Kenyatta to that extent. But a lot will depend on the psyche of the Kalenjin voter and how the coalition also plays its politics.
He may be labeled as a political greenhorn, but the newfound alliance between Gideon Moi and Bomet Governor Ruto is not something that can be swept under the carpet, especially coming from a voter-rich region of the Rift Valley. Aaron Ochen, KTN, Nairobi.
Let's move away from politics now and look at some security matters. Police say that they have smashed a syndicate in which young Muslim girls are lured into Somalia under the guise of getting scholarships. This comes after 3 girls aged between 19 and 22 years were arrested in Elwak in Mandera County. The girls were allegedly carrying documents indicating that they were going to join an international university in Sudan. Now, according to Mombasa County Commissioner Nelson Marwa, the police discovered that the 3 girls were crossing into Somalia instead of their specified destination.
Some individuals are using social media platforms, WhatsApps, to communicate to innocent girls out there, ladies, youths, and they are promising them heaven there. You are imagining wewe umepata scholarship, unaenda kusoma. Ukifika huko, some individuals are waiting for you. You are converted to go to some area where you are taught to mambo ya jihadism. Wengine maswala ya kuwa suicide bombers.
Inspector General of Police Joseph Boinett is giving cattle rustlers in Baragoi up to 48 hours to return stolen cattle and illegal weapons. Boinett said failure to do so will attract an unspecified action. Now, he was speaking at a peace meeting in Baragoi that comes only days after raids where a student was shot dead and livestock was stolen occurred.
And if they fail to heed that warning, they will have nobody else to blame for whatever consequences will befall them after the expiry of that period. In the same vein, I would wish to instruct those illegal grazers and herders who have invaded private property in Mutukani, Mochongoi, and Marigat areas of Baringo County to return back to wherever they came from peacefully, without engaging in any acts of criminality.
Now let's cross borders for a moment now and look at a story that's been brewing for months. Now it appears that the disagreement between Kenyan and Tanzanian tour drivers is far from over. This despite a recent announcement by the government that issues had been resolved following a meeting between President Uhuru Kenyatta and Jakaya Kikwete in Namibia. Here's KTN's Ian Wafula with the details.
A picture is worth 1,000 words, and this one was not an exception. The captions that followed the image taken during the meeting between President Uhuru Kenyatta and Tanzania's Jakaya Kikwete ranged from awkwardness to tension between the two head of states, and thereafter came this.
With immediate effects, Tanzania registered vehicles will access the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport as before, while Kenya Airways will continue with its normal operations.
The ban on Tanzania's tour vans into Jomo Kenyatta International Airport by Kenya previously was not taken lightly. It was viewed as a retaliation by the Kenyan government after its tour vans were banned from entering into parks in Tanzania. Yet days after the announcement by Kenya's Amina Mohamed, drivers in Tanzania are still crying foul.
Tatizo lilikuwa ni kubwa zaidi kwa sababu unambeba mgeni anajua kwamba unamshusha airport. Badala yake unamshusha njiani na ni saa za usiku. Ni giza. Kwa hiyo mgeni anajaribu kuona labda kuna namna fulani ya ukora unataka kumfanyia.
Shida nafikiri ni katika masuala ya kisiasa. Sijui ndani ya serikali, lakini naamini ni katika masuala ya kisiasa tu ndio iliyoleta hii shida.
In a case of same script, different cast, back home, Mbugo Muturi, a van driver, for instance, finds the conflict a sensitive subject and can barely hold back his disappointment, factoring in his losses.
Changamoto ziko mingi kwa sababu sasa Watanzania wenyewe hawataki, most cases walikuwa hawataki hata tuingie kwao. So ukitoka hapa ukienda na wageni ukishafika na manga unakuta wameorganize gari zingine zao. So wewe unapaka gari yako pale, unamwaga wageni kwa gari yao. Wao wenyewe wanabeba wageni wanaenda. Wewe unafika pale, safari yako inakatishwa hapo, unarudi.
But it goes beyond the tourism sector. 2 weeks ago, MPs in Tanzania passed the Non-Citizens Employment Regulation Bill aimed at curbing foreign employment. The bill requires that firms satisfy the government that no Tanzanian can do a job before it is offered to a foreigner. Speculation is rife that this new law is targeted at Kenyans. Even as the tussle between two of the largest economies in East Africa continues, certainly those feeling the heat are those whose lives fully depend on crossing the borders daily. And as they continue to mint losses, theirs is to hope that the spirit of the East African integration will be more than just papers and memorandum of understandings. Ian Wafula, KTN, Nairobi.
Let's move away from that tiff to a new phenomenon that is taking Kisumu City by storm, particularly an initiative known as Primus that has so far helped to rehabilitate thousands of youth who are only recently, considered to have been social misfits. Now, KTN's Victor Ogale has that story.
It may look like a high-class event in an institution where those who excelled are being awarded.
Today, wow. Ask me how.
However, this is the reality of what these youths go through daily. Meet Doreen Wasonga, who is busy selling utensils in the informal settlements of Nyalenda in Kisumu. Doreen and over 1,000 other youths in Kisumu City view this venture called Primus as a second chance in life. Were it not for the project, most of them would be social misfits. Soon after completing a secondary school education, Doreen left her rural home in Ugenya constituency, Siaya County, to seek greener pastures in Kisumu City. However, the lakeside city would not dance to her tune. She had to make do with whatever came by. She has had to cope with the pressures of living in such areas. The Primus group, however, is transforming her life.
There are some when you tulimaliza na farm for wanaka uko home. Me personally, I'm independent, but them they are not independent. How? Because nikitoka hapa asubuhi naenda Primus without anything, niseme maybe niko na only 100 kwa pocket, but coming back in the evening nitakuwa na kitu 450 at my pocket.
Habari kushina sister. Umeshindaje?
In Migosi Estate, Kisumu Central constituency, we meet Yukabeth Achieng, who just like Doreen was on the verge of giving up on life. She now has something to show for her efforts. The group gives each member some utensils to sell in town. They earn a commission from each transaction.
After some years, I'm going to invest and I'm going to change my life. But nikijoin vitu zingine kama tuseme vitu kama M-Pesa, najua hizo vitu they will change my life.
The group's handlers who were once on the same level with Yukabeth and Doreen, now they hold regular awarding ceremonies to recognize the efforts of those working under them.
This is the best thing for the youth because you find the road of idleness, all youths are very busy. You come in the office in the morning, everyone is busy in field work.
In a male-dominated world, both Yukabeth and Doreen do face challenges in their daily routines.
Yani mtu anasema vitu za ujinga, yani anataka ufanye vitu za ujinga kwanza, do maybe abai vitu zako.
Most men will discourage you from maybe doing what you're doing because they think that maybe you should be married or something else. Even some you can go to the village and they promise you to leave the job and get married.
For two young ladies who had almost given up on life, the sky is the limit for Yukabeth and Doreen. Both say they have been down and the only way to go now is up. Victor Ogale, KTN, in the county of Kisumu.
Strathmore University are the winners of this year's Zuku Basketball League. The Blades beat Zetech University in a closely contested match at the Kasarani Gymnasium. And in a women's league, United States International University overcame Strathmore to take home the honors. Robinson Okenya reports.
It was an all-Nairobi conference affair in the Zuku Basketball League finals as Strathmore Blades took on Zetech Titans. Having won the Nairobi regional finals over Zetech a week ago, Strathmore's determination to do a double of the opponents was evident from the tip-off as they took a 5-0 lead and eventually getting an 18-12 lead in the first quarter. The Madaraka-based side's dominance played out in the second quarter as they made an extra 16 points to Zetech's 9 to head into the break with a 34-21 lead. After the breather, Zetech came back a rejuvenated lot, making 12 points to cut Strathmore's lead by 10 points. Zetech's 11 points in the final quarter were too little to make a difference as Joseph Ongoro guided Strathmore to a 54-44 victory.
Kulingana na jana tulipatiana yetu yote, lakini nimefurahia sana vijana wamejitokeza. Zetech ni timu nzuri sana na pia naweza washukuru kwa mchezo mzuri, lakini wachezaji wangu walikuwa wazuri zaidi.
It's our first time kwa hii tournament. Kwa hivyo tunashukuru. We win some, you lose some. Lazima ukubali umelose.
In the ladies category, defending champions USIU Flames proved they were still the queens of the court as they emerged victorious over resurgent Strathmore University with a 40-3 win to take the honors to the delight of their fans.
It is a team that has good coaches, quality players, and then that rivalry between USIU and Strathmore is there to stay.
Egerton University beat the University of Eldoret to take the third place men's playoff, while Maseno beat Egerton to take the third place honors in the ladies category. Robinson Okenye, KTN Sports.
All right, very interesting feedback coming from you on the Graft Countdown and our hashtag checkpoint. Let me see if I can read one or two before we close this bulletin. When we stop electing people who want to protect their ill-acquired wealth, maybe we can think of a graft-free generation. That's from Abonyo F. Onroy. Sheila Masinda says, we knew that they were hyenas, referring to some of our elected officials, and didn't purge corrupt elements at nominations or polls. Same hashtag Graft Countdown. And Priscilla Mora says, let them resign or be suspended, of course in reference to elected officials. Remember, the Graft Countdown continues for another 56 days up until that deadline given by President Uhuru Kenyatta on the investigations into the character as well as the corruption allegations leveled against some 175 public officers, both elected and state officials, concludes whether those investigations prosecutions will go the way of them being charged or they will be set free remains to be seen. A lot of work needs to be done at the office of the Director of Public Prosecutions as well as the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission. We will keep tabs on this every day until that 60-day ultimatum runs out. My name is John Alenamu. Thank you very much for joining us tonight on KTN Weekend Prime, the point of news. Let's do this again next weekend, but remember to join us again tomorrow and every day of the week for KTN Prime. Have a good night.